Welcome all to the Everyone Has a Right to Clean Water webinar. In just a minute, we're going to dive in to hear all about our factory farm fights. I'm Emma Schmit with Food and Water Watch, and we have a fantastic lineup of speakers with us tonight who we'll introduce in just a moment. Before we get started, just a quick orientation if you're joining us on Zoom. This would be a great time to mention that if you aren't joining us on screen share, we highly recommend doing that by clicking the link in your email. We're here on video and we'll be sharing slides throughout the webinar. But if you're joining us by phone, that's fine too. You just won't get to stare at all our speakers' pretty faces for the next 40 minutes. We will be keeping everyone on mute to cut down on background noise, but we will be taking questions at the end of the webinar. If you have a question at any point in the presentation, you can click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can at the end of the webinar. I'll also note that we will not be using the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. So again, just click Q&A if you want to ask a question. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, just pop your questions in the comments section and we'll try to get to as many as we can. If you have any technical issues or if you're joining us over the phone and have questions, you can call Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement at 515-282-0484. That's 515-282-0484. And with that, let's dive into our program. As you've probably heard, we filed a lawsuit against the state of Iowa last week. We're claiming that the state has violated its obligation to protect the Raccoon River for the use and benefit of all Iowans. This obligation is called the Public Trust Doctrine, which requires the state to protect the public's use and not abdicate control to private interests. With well-documented water pollution and only voluntary agricultural pollution controls, the lawsuit alleges that the state is failing to uphold its duty. If you didn't catch all that, don't worry, I get you. Usually the only legal work I find interesting is when it's on Law & Order SVU. But we'll dig deeper into all the details of the lawsuit in a little bit. First, we're going to kick things off with some introductions, and then I'll pass it off to our panelists to discuss how we got to the point of suing the state, a bit of history on our factory farm campaign, our legal strategy, how you can get involved, and we'll wrap up with some questions from the audience. First up, we have the illustrious Adam Mason, who is the State Policy Organizing Director at Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement. He directs the Farming and Environmental Organizing Project at Iowa CCI, working with staff and members on grassroots organizing campaigns to support family farmers and rural and urban Iowans in confronting the impacts of corporate ag and factory farms, ensuring that enforcement environmental rules and regulations, and pushing for better policies that put people and planet first. After that, we have Emma Schmit, who is me. I'm the Iowa organizer for Food and Water Watch. I help to build the organizing effort to stop the negative impacts of factory farms on Iowa's communities and the environment, and I participate in the state campaign to win a moratorium on new and expanded factory farms. Next, we have the distinguished Brent Newell, who is a food project attorney with Public Justice, where he works with the food project team to reform the industrial animal agriculture system, support impacted communities, and promote sustainable alternatives. And last, but certainly not least, is Abby Landheis, who is an organizer on CCI's Farm and Environment team. She travels the state to help communities stop factory farms from being built, works to pass good laws and stop bad laws at the State House, and pushes our state agencies to enforce the laws already on the books. I've only just summarized some of the incredible work all of our speakers have done, and I want to thank them for all the great work they do every day, as well as for being with us tonight. And with that, I'll pass it off to Adam Mason from CCI to kick us off.
I know why you're all here tonight. It's when they profit. It sounds like actually some folks are having a hard time hearing me.
Okay, Adam, you got to figure it out or you're getting nixed. We can skip to Brent and come back to you if you want. I think that should be the game plan. Brent, you want to lead us into some legal strategy?
Sure, thanks, Emma. Hello, everyone. I'm going to share a screen with you. First of all, as Emma said, my name is Brent Newell. I'm with the Food Project at Public Justice. The Food Project supports rural communities, farmers, and allies to build power and achieve a just, humane, sustainable, and regenerative animal agriculture system through litigation, storytelling, and organizing. So this slide that you see here comes from our lawsuit, and it lays out the basics of the Public Trust Doctrine. The Public Trust Doctrine is really ancient law. It goes all the way back to Roman law, the Code of Justinian, which created this principle that the government, as the sovereign, has the obligation to protect natural resources that are common to the public, such as water and air. This legal principle was imported to England under the kings of England and came to North America as the law of the 13 colonies when we were part of England. When the colonies became independent states, the Public Trust Doctrine became part of those states' sovereign obligation to the public to protect those common resources. When Iowa became a state in 1846, the Public Trust Doctrine attached to Iowa's laws and became part of its obligation to protect navigable waters for the citizens of Iowa. So Iowa is a trustee, and its job is to protect the navigable waters of Iowa. It shall not abdicate control of those navigable waters, and it shall not allow substantial impairment of the navigable waters. The lawsuit addresses the situation in the Raccoon River watershed. As you can see, the Raccoon River is located in central Iowa. It's about 3,200 square miles, and most of that land is under corn and soybean agricultural production, about 75%. There's also quite a few animal feeding operations, hog and egg laying and chicken operations, mostly hogs, and all the fertilizer that's applied and the manure to the crops in that watershed are affecting the water quality downstream in the Raccoon River near the city of Des Moines. That downstream section is also where the Des Moines Waterworks draws its drinking water that it then treats and provides to 500,000 Iowans. This chart, also from our complaint, illustrates the severity of the pollution problem in the Raccoon River. These are water sample data from the intake where the Des Moines Waterworks draws water into its system in the Raccoon River near Waterworks Park. As you can see, the long-term trend over time has increased. And each time those spikes, these are monthly average nitrate concentrations. Each time the concentrations are above 10 milligrams per liter, that's violating the federal drinking water standard and Iowa's water quality standard for the Raccoon River. Also in the Raccoon River are cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae. And nitrogen and phosphorus runoff from agricultural sources provide nutrients for these cyanobacteria to grow and then bloom. That's another problem for drinking water and recreational use. Now, the principle here in this case is that Iowa citizens have a right to clean water. That right is protected under the Public Trust Doctrine. The public is a beneficiary and has the right to use navigable waters like the Raccoon River as a drinking water source and as a recreational resource. The pollution from agricultural sources in the Raccoon watershed, all this nitrogen and phosphorus flowing downstream, is impairing that use. And the state of Iowa has never required limitations on nitrogen or phosphorus. There's only a voluntary system in place, and that is not getting the job done. So our clients, Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement and Food and Water Watch, have, after many years of advocacy, had to take the step of filing a lawsuit against the state to hold the state accountable, because the state has violated its duty as the trustee and has an obligation to protect this resource for the public. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you, Brent. If you have any questions for Brent, be sure to pop them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. He's a smart one on the team, so be sure to give him a lot of tough questions. Now I'll pass it off to Adam.
Okay, we'll try this second time around here. As I was saying, I know why you're all here, and thank you, Brent. We're just going to jump in real quick on why we had to take this action. Like I said, I know you're here because you want clean water and you want a food and farm system that works for you, that works for farmers, that works for workers, that works for eaters, and that works for our environment. That's why we're all here too. And so we're happy that you're joining us in this fight and working to build this system with us. We didn't get to this problem overnight, obviously. It's been years in the making, but I'm going to share my screen here just to give you a glimpse of what we're dealing with. Oops, let's see. And we want to view, start the slideshow, sorry about this. There we go. So what you see in front of you right now is over 7,000 hog factories here in Iowa. Add to that the thousands of turkey and poultry barns and giant cattle feedlots across Iowa, and we have over 10,000 factory farms. Those 10,000 factory farms and the monoculture cropping system that support them have caused Iowa to have a record number 750 impaired waterways. Over half the water bodies in Iowa that are tested are impaired. And that's a real problem that our state is not reacting to. Like I said, it didn't get this way overnight. We've been working with family farmers here at Iowa CCI since the 80s during the farm crisis, working to keep family farmers on the farm. Because family farmers who know their farms and can implement the best practices are the way that we reclaim our food and farm system. Throughout the 80s, working to keep family farmers on the farm, to protect fair prices for farmers, into the 90s supporting sustainable agriculture. And then in 1995, seeing the policies really start to take root here in Iowa that allowed the expansion of factory farms. In 1995, Iowa passed House File 519, opening the door to the thousands of factory farms you saw on that last slide. In 2002, due to uproar across the state of Iowa from rural communities, state legislators gave us the master matrix. For those of you who live in a rural community on the webinar with us tonight, you know what the master matrix is. Again, another failure that was written by and for the corporate ag industry that allows factory farms to largely come into our communities unchecked. And so in the mid-2000s, folks who were concerned about our water quality here in Iowa and were saying that we had enough, filed, actually working with one of our attorneys on the legal team for this lawsuit, Tara Heinzen, who at the time was at Environmental Integrity Project, but is now one of our star legal beagles at Food and Water Watch, helped us here at Iowa CCI file a petition with the EPA because the DNR was not doing its job of enforcing the Clean Water Act in Iowa. I'm proud to say that this petition is still open. We've gotten some victories, some stronger rules and regulations, but largely the DNR and other state agencies continue to rubber stamp the factory farm expansion here in Iowa, and our state's leaders have allowed this industry to grow unchecked. In 2012, we saw the state adopt the voluntary nutrient reduction strategy. Again, this is a voluntary program that is implementing supposed conservation practices, but unfortunately is only adopted by about 3% of the farmers across the state. And then, of course, we saw a huge game-shifting lawsuit in 2015 by the Des Moines Waterworks out of concern over drinking water. Again, these are all kind of stepping stones into what have brought us here today. But I'm going to turn it back to Emma to talk a little bit about a campaign that we've been running together over the last 2 years to win a moratorium. Emma.
All right. Thank you, Adam. I want to give folks a quick reminder first that we'll be emailing out the recording of this webinar as well as any additional resources we cover. If you have any questions for Adam, be sure to pop them in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you're on your phone, you can call in questions to CCI at 515-282-0484. I'm going to take it from here to talk about the past year of our factory farm campaign. So give me just a second to share my screen here. All right. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what we've been doing to stop factory farms this past year. Many of you probably already know what we've been up to since you were there with us, right alongside us, but just in case you haven't noticed, our factory farm moratorium campaign is stronger than ever. And I'm not just saying that to hype you all up, it's the God's honest truth. Scout's honor. I'm not actually a Boy Scout, but my brother is an Eagle Scout, and I did have to put up with that nonsense for 12 years. So I figure if anyone has like the chance to be an honorary Boy Scout and use the Scout's honor, it should be me. Anyways, back to the important stuff. We had over 5,000 people sign a petition calling for a moratorium on factory farms. We have 25 counties now passing resolutions calling for stricter protections against factory farms. 72 organizations signed on to a letter we delivered to legislators calling on them to pass a moratorium on new and expanded factory farms. 25 legislators declared support for our moratorium legislation. That's over twice as much support as we had last year. And it's a big deal here in Iowa when so many of our politicians are at the beck and call of agribusinesses like Farm Bureau. We had over 100 Iowans show up to our moratorium lobby day to convince legislators to support a moratorium on factory farms. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Our bills failed to move this session, in large part because Representative Dean Fisher, chair of the House Environmental Protection Committee, refused to assign our bill to subcommittee. He ignored the people of Iowa and failed to do his job representing us. He received hundreds of calls and emails from Iowans asking him to assign the bill to a subcommittee. He ignored a dozen of his constituents who showed up to a forum and asked him to move the legislation. Even after we took out this beautiful ad in his local paper calling him out, he would not act. The legislative process truly failed us. There's no meaningful legislation left this session addressing Iowa's water quality crisis. Our water, our rural communities, and our independent family farmers can't wait for our elected officials to stop twiddling their thumbs and get to work. We need action now. So we decided to file a lawsuit. We decided that if the legislature wouldn't do anything to address the water quality crisis Iowa faces because corporate ag is too busy extracting profits from our communities to clean up their mess, their pollution, we'd take it to the courts. So that's where we're at. I'll let Abby go ahead and explain what you can do to help out and get this lawsuit more noticeable and hopefully make a difference. Thanks.
Thanks, Emma. Hey, everyone, I'm Abby Landheis. I know you couldn't see me earlier. It's my turn to share my screen. One moment. All right. Okay, so I know from Brent to Adam to Emma, that was a lot of information thrown out at you, and I'm sure there are many questions. In fact, we can see that several have been posted already, so just hang tight. We'll get to them very shortly. I just wanted to quickly lay out a couple next steps and opportunities to get involved. So since this lawsuit is hot news and a big deal, we want to spread the word and get people really excited. So letters to the editor are a great way to do this. A lot of people still read the newspaper, so it's an easy way to get in front of a big audience and let them know why you support this lawsuit and why you're passionate about clean water. If you don't know what to say or where to start, don't worry. Even I at the office would love to help you out. So go ahead and shoot us an email or give us a call at the office. That's 515-282-0484. And then one more thing, as you can see on the slide, we're going on the road. We're really excited about it. If you can see behind me right here, that's our calendar. And we're excited to tell you we are going to be hitting the road, and we're going to be visiting 8 towns across the state to not only educate folks about this awesome lawsuit, but to let you know of some exciting events coming up this summer and fall and how you can get plugged in into our statewide work. But that's all I have for next steps. So without further ado, let's get to some questions. Emma, back to you.
Thank you, Miss Abby. If y'all have any questions about our next steps, go ahead and put them in the Q&A now, and we'll try and answer. Some of your questions have already been answered by Chrissy. She's been in the chat trying to get to them as they come in. We're going to go ahead and get a start to the Q&A portion of this webinar now. We've received a ton of great questions, so I am going to hand it off first to Brent. It sounds like a question for you. How is this lawsuit different from the Des Moines Waterworks case?
Well, the Des Moines Waterworks case was a lawsuit brought in federal court against 3 counties that manage 10 drain districts in the Raccoon River watershed. And just to sort of boil it down, to summarize it, they said that under the Federal Clean Water Act, the tile drains should be regulated like a factory that is dumping water pollution into a river. So they sought to get the court to use this industrial pollution permitting system with technological controls to treat the nitrate that was coming out of these tile drains. They also sought to recover some damages because the Waterworks was incurring substantial costs to treat the nitrate water down that it was drawing from the Raccoon River, so that when it provided that water to its customers, it wouldn't be violating federal drinking water laws. The courts dismissed the case. The Iowa Supreme Court said that drainage districts were immune under Iowa state law for damages lawsuits, and they were immune from lawsuits that sought a court order to make someone change their behavior. So the lawsuit didn't work out for Des Moines Waterworks because of Iowa state law, basically. This case is different in that we are relying on a legal principle and law that is really part of the DNA of Iowa, part of the DNA of this country. And it goes back, like I said earlier, all the way to England and to the Roman Empire. And it's an important principle that the public has rights. And the sovereign, here the state of Iowa, has the right to, has the duty to protect waters for the public's use. And this lawsuit is raising a claim that was not raised in the Des Moines Waterworks case. So we're taking this case against the state to say, hey, you, the state, you have a job to do here. You're failing to do your job, and you owe, you need to get to work.
Perfect. Thank you, Brent. This next question we have looks like it was made for Abby. I know you kind of talked about this, but can you just once again explain, what people can do in their own communities to support this lawsuit?
I would love to. Kind of what I just talked about in the next steps. We'd love for you to write a letter to the editor and also come to one of our road shows. We will be announcing the location soon. And then at the road shows, we'll get you even all the knowledge on this lawsuit, but see that wonderful map. We are excited to share that the support for a moratorium is growing and growing. And that is definitely one of the next steps we'll be talking about on our road shows. If you're interested in working on a moratorium for your county, I'd love to chat more.
All right, Adam, get back on screen. I don't want to leave you out, so we've got a question for you. The DNR seems to turn a blind eye around here, at least in East Central Iowa, with regards to large cattle feedlots. What should I do to draw attention to the massive runoff from these operations without causing a range war?
That is a great question. So there's a number of things you can do. I mean, first and foremost, when you see pollution happening, try and document that. Get pictures, write down the time of day, what time it was. If you know that there's been rain or if there hasn't been rain, that's also good to note. You can call us at Iowa CCI. You can call the folks at Food and Water Watch. We'll help you kind of go through the process. But the number one thing you need to do is document it, and then we'll help you file a complaint with the Iowa DNR. Part of our, I mentioned this ongoing campaign with the Environmental Protection Agency, trying to force the DNR to enforce the Clean Water Act. We absolutely have to document these kinds of pollution events to show that the DNR is not cracking down on polluters. So documenting that's a critical component. We can help you file a complaint. We've worked with folks before who've filed complaints, and we see that through the process, making sure that the DNR goes out and investigates these spills, following it through the investigation enforcement process. Is the DNR forcing corrective measures to be taken? Should they issue a permit? Fines and penalties. There's lots of things that we can do to work through the system, even as we try and change the system.
Beautiful. Brent, I'm going to give you another one. Someone asked how long the process for this lawsuit will take. Will it take months, years? Any idea?
Well, it's going to take a while. There's a saying that the wheels of justice grind slowly. So it's hard to predict. We will move this forward as quickly as we possibly can, because this is such an important issue to many Iowans.
All right. Let's see. Adam, get back on the screen because we got another one for you. What management practices could farmers utilize to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus?
That's a great question. So the beauty of Iowa's nutrient reduction strategy, even though it's voluntary, is that for 5 years, going on 6 now, they've been studying which practices work best. So we do know which practices work best to reduce nutrient runoff, whether that's nitrogen or phosphorus. So what we're asking for in this lawsuit, by asking that the nutrient reduction strategy be mandatory, is really putting farmers in control of their options. They know their fields and their farms the best. They're going to know which of these practices reduce the nutrient runoff problems that they're having. We want to empower farmers to really adopt those choices, but what has to happen is that all farmers have to be participating in this system. This goes at the root of this question, though, is the need to completely overhaul our food and farm system. Right now, we have a monoculture cropping system that prioritizes overproduction for the profit of a handful of corporate agribusinesses. We need to make sure that farmers are getting a fair price for their crops, and that we draw down on the overproduction of these commodity grains. So that's what we want to see happening with farms across the state.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam. Abby, I'm going to let you take this next one because I actually heard you fielding this question on the phone the other day. So here we go. Does this lawsuit apply to just the Raccoon River or to the entire state?
Great question. And thank you for eavesdropping on a phone call. It does. So our lawsuit focuses on a very small segment of the Raccoon River, but you have to think big. I mean, the Raccoon River is a part of a very big watershed. And of course, statewide, we've had a water crisis for a long time now. So this lawsuit, while it may be small in scope, our demands from the lawsuit are definitely big picture. And I guess I can add on to that, that what we're demanding is a mandatory nutrient reduction strategy, and then a moratorium on new and expanded factory farms.
You nailed that. Thank you. All right, if anybody has any follow-up questions, I would suggest putting them into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen right now, because we're down to one last question, which I will kind of let anyone handle if they want to. The question is, what will we gain from this lawsuit, and will it really change anything? Take it away, Adam. You look confident there.
Well, I think absolutely. You know, this lawsuit has the potential to be a game changer for us in a number of ways, both inside and outside the courtroom. You know, going into this, we know that we are fighting an uphill battle. We fully expect our opponents who are profiting from this system of agriculture that is so pollution intensive to come out swinging. But outside of the courtroom, this lawsuit really is an opportunity for us to continue the conversation that we've been having for the last several years with Iowans about clean water. And that's one more way that everybody on the webinar tonight can play a role too. Help us have this conversation about clean water with more Iowans. You know, we drink water, we play in it, we recreate in it, we depend on water. Water is life. So this is the conversation that we absolutely have to have with more Iowans if we want to change the story about what needs to happen to protect our water. So that is a huge benefit of this lawsuit, is that we have the opportunity to go out and just engage tens of thousands of more Iowans and bring them into our clean water fight, so that we're all working together for not only for a different food and farm system, but for clean water.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone. We're getting kind of short on time, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at Public Justice, Food and Water Watch, or Iowa CCI. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We couldn't do any of this work without such an incredible network of activists and allies. We really appreciate your help. So we're giving it up to you. I'd also like to thank our speakers for preparing such great presentations. That's all the clap you guys get. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for helping us fight for a clean water Iowa. See everyone on the front line soon.